What you know what? Just to be safe thing you did end up saving your ass later. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy. Thanks. Story 1. Not my ass, but my mom's. She and I were home alone and I was getting ready to go to a party. I came upstairs and found her with the carbon monoxide detector in pieces on the coffee table. She said it was beeping, and apparently once years ago in our last house one was malfunctioning and giving a false alarm, so I guess she just assumed it was happening again. I shrugged it off and continued getting ready. I was about to leave but something was nagging at me. She was insisting it was fine. After some arguing with her I said no. We are calling the fire department. So I did. They came, and the levels of carbon monoxide were so high in the basement they said anyone sleeping down there would be dead already. Our cats were vomiting from the poisoning and we didn't realize. I guess the filter on the furnace was so clogged it was pumping out carbon monoxide. One of the firefighters pulled me aside and said if I hadn't called I likely would have come home to my mom dead in her bed. Story 3. My friend and his wife were having their first child. They had gotten a big packet of information and paperwork to fill out before the due date to make things easier. There were also brochures for genetic testing and other things that could be done, and one of the things was about saving the cord blood. My friend said that he looked at the front of the brochure and his wife asked if they should do it. It is not cheap, a couple $1,000 to save it and a few hundred a year after that, and my friend said yes. Their daughter was born later that year. 3 years after her birth, they had a boy, and he was born with an immune disorder, no white cells, and his big sister's cord blood and stem cells were used as a treatment. Pulled up outside my place after getting off a late shift and had to get a backpack out of my trunk before going in. I noticed a group of teenage kids hanging out on the corner and thought nope. Called my roommate to come watch me walk to the door. About 10 minutes later a girl comes running down the street bleeding, saying she got jumped by the group of kids for no reason. Stay alert out there, y'all. Story 6. Save the GPS location of my vehicle on Google Maps before exploring a national forest with a road trip buddy. We grabbed some fishing poles and head out towards the nearest water location on our map to hopefully catch a couple fish. Turns out it was a swamp, not a lake, and we got so incredibly turned around it could have ended very badly. We really didn't go that far in from where we parked but somehow ended up on the other side of the swamp without realizing it. Drizzling rain, mosquitoes, bear tracks, and the sun started going down before we found the car. Without the GPS coordinates saved it would have been a cold, wet night in the woods at a minimum, and more than likely a search and rescue required situation. Was trying to separate some railroad ties with a crowbar as part of his yard work for the day, and when it popped, a nail flew and embedded itself in one of the lenses of his safety glasses he threw on because he had them for work. He keeps them on his desk as a reminder. PPE is not just for the workplace, folks. Story 8. Backing up computer files onto an external drive on a regular basis. Power goes out one afternoon, and I was the only one not profusely sweating. Story 9. I forwarded an email to my non-work address so that after I left and anonymously reported my employer to the state I couldn't get stuck with the blame for shit. Story 10. Normally I'm pretty impressionable and cave to peer pressure, but this one time when I was younger I was hanging with my friends and a couple of older high school guys I'd only met that day. The girls were all fawning over them, but I could tell they were idiots. When they all wanted to go for a drive with the guys, I thought, now, I don't trust these guys and I think it's best I just call my parents and go home. I got a call the next morning from one of the girls who was passenger. One of the high school boys was driving. They'd had a serious crash and one of the girls wasn't wearing her seatbelt and hit her head on the dash and was in a coma for 6 months. She was in intensive care and rehabilitation for years. Still can't believe of all the days I decided not to go with the flow. It probably saved my life. Terribly sad about my friend. We were really close but she never came right and her personality changed. I still wonder how successful she might have been and if we'd still be friends if that hadn't happened to her. Really sad. Some months later, my dog suffered a severe back injury and needed surgery to reverse the paralysis. It was expensive out of pocket, but without the reimbursement from insurance it would have been way worse. com/09ri6u1, standing by himself, https://imgur. com/GJLQTIA man for a more recent pic. Here he is sleeping, https://imgur. com/0JGWOT and looking goofy, https://imgur. com/PHA the 5BG. Most of my dog pics are of him asleep, since otherwise he moves around so much, it just looks like a blur. Story 12. When I was a student, I'd do my own work on my car to save mechanic bills. One day, after changing brake pads, I was driving on the motorway at 100 km/h, the freeway at 60 miles per hour for our American friends, and felt a slight shuddering through the steering wheel. Given you're not supposed to stop on a motorway unless it's a real emergency, I was reluctant to pull over to check if anything was wrong. Though having only worked on the car that morning, I decided I'd check, just to be safe. Turns out I hadn't even finger tightened the wheel nuts, only threaded them about a half turn each. Story 14. There are times when it's crucial for me to take something with me when I leave home the next day. I figured that of course I'll remember, because it's so crucial, but just to be safe, I will put the thing on top of my car keys. And yes, that's bailed me out a couple of times. Story 15. Was watching my toddler nephew and he'd found a metal straw somewhere in the house and started playing with it. He was just tapping stuff and waving it around, but I'd read a story on Reddit about a woman who got completely fucked up by a metal straw when she fell and it impaled her face. So I took the metal one from nephew and gave him a soft, squishy silicone one to play with instead. I'm not exaggerating when I said less than 5 minutes later, he fell like toddlers do and I saw the silicone straw all smushed into his cheek. I had to just sit for a while after that, lol. He was going to just use his old prescription, but last minute decided to just go to the optometrist anyway in case something changed. Turns out he had a tear in his retina and was booked for surgery within 24 hours. It was bad enough they said he probably would have gone blind really soon had they not caught it when then did. I never wear an apron whilst cooking, but for some reason I figured why not this time, and as soon as I stepped out of range of the fryer, they all exploded. Turns out, carioca can form an impermeable shell when fried, so pressure built up inside until they popped and sprayed hot oil all over the kitchen. Of course, I was safely away reaching for an apron and was completely dumbfounded. Made sure to punch some holes in all subsequent batches. Of course, once I cleaned the kitchen, I ate them and they were delicious. 10/10 highly recommend. Story 18. Grabbed a helmet when riding a bike down a steep hill as a kid. Normally didn't, but I ended up falling at top speed and breaking my helmet and chipping 3 teeth. Could have been my head that was broken. Story 19. I used to always carry a small high-powered flashlight in my pocket. One day my wife had to go to the She was having problems with her feminine bits. Her gyno was called, and during the exam, my wife began to bleed out. There was insufficiently equipped as far as portable light sources on hand, and on a whim, as her doctor stepped out of the room, looking panicked, I made a snap decision, pulled that flashlight from my pocket, and offered it to the doctor. I showed her how to operate it, and to make a long story short, that $5 flashlight saved my wife's life by making it possible for her doctor to find the bleed and stop it. It didn't save my ass, but it saved the life of the woman I love more than life itself. By Thanksgiving I'd already requested a room change, but had to wait until holiday break because there were no free rooms available. While we waiting for the room change, we avoided each other and I generally spent as little time in the room as possible, which was usually fine. The last day of class before Thanksgiving break rolls around and I was chilling in a friend's room waiting for a ride home for the week. I texted my roommate to let me know when she was gone so I could come and grab my stuff, and after she replied "K," I didn't think much of it. Out of nowhere a thought struck me and I sat bolt upright and shouted the vodka. I realized I had half a handle of vodka stashed in my mini fridge. I jumped through hoops to get it from my older sister when we'd first moved in because my roommate had desperately wanted to throw a party in our room. But now that we were on the outs, I knew this bitch would point it out to her mom when she got picked up in an attempt to get my disciplined. My friend thought I was insane, but I convinced her in a near panic that we had to do something. We called a mutual friend and cashed in a favor. We told him he needed to call my roommate and demand she get lunch with him to get her out of the room. I waited just out of sight in the dorm courtyard and watched her and the guy walk into the dining hall, then dead sprinted to our room. The handle was sitting out on my desk. I immediately threw it in a garbage bag and buried it in my laundry, then flew out of that room like a bat out of hell. Hours later I went to the room to pack up and found that she'd absolutely trashed the room. She had pulled apart my desk, my bed and my closet, but somehow missed my hamper. In a rage she ripped apart my name tag. In the end I got away with my vodka and she got written up from trashing my shit. My instincts did not lead me astray that day. Story 21. Had my boat trailer bearings repacked by the boat repair shop. dealer before I went on a trip that I had to tow it for 400+ miles. I usually repack the bearings myself, but figured I'd have the pros do it since I had a long haul ahead of me. The day before I left, I decided to double-check that the bearing case was full of grease. Without it they would overheat and I'd be *CKD royally and stranded with a high risk of a wheel actually coming off the trailer if I didn't notice it in transit. There was no grease at all in the bearing case on any of the 4 wheels. I would have been lucky to make it 20 miles before something serious happened. Also, this has been a habit for decades. Pat my pocket to make sure my keys are in my pocket before closing the locked house door, my car door, etc. Story 23. Back when I used to smoke weed, my friend and I went to pick up a particularly large bag of it. We took 2 cars with the idea it'll tailgate him in case any cops in our town do a routine pullover. The corner of our street had a small shop and wouldn't you know who was parked there ready to pull over the next car. Couldn't believe our luck when it worked. They pulled out behind us, sirens went on, and I pulled over and my friend just continued on home with the goods. I got a routine alcohol test and sent on my way. A girl wanted to hook up with me and I was going to, but I ended up drinking and watching Lord of the Rings 2 Towers with some friends instead at their dorm. Few days later I was fired from my job for sexually harassing a student. I didn't in any way, shape or form sexually harass anyone, and the date time given was when I was in middle of movie. I had 13 people to vouch for me. Never found out this person who reported me, but I'm fairly certain we can all guess who it was because after I and my friends all literally said I was watching movie, which I was, and also I slept over at their dorm. Nothing wrong with a 12-dude sleepover, haha. I was rehired and case dismissed. Had my penis won the decision to hook up or not, I'd probably be in hot shit. Story 25. You know what? I'm gonna look to see if all the vehicles have come to a stop, just to be safe. I told myself this right before I enter an intersection in my car. It saved my life because there was a vehicle doing around 100 km/h that would have torn my car in half and killed me. Story 26. Was in a dune buggy with a roll cage and just driving it around the neighborhood. Put on a motocross helmet just to be safe. When we wrecked, the side of the helmet that hit the road was completely white as all the paint had been scrapped off. Story 27. Leaving a spare set of keys at the pub that I live above. Went out on St. Patrick's Day and had my coat stolen. I keep my keys in my coat. At 3 in the morning, I had genuinely no idea how I would have been able to get home otherwise. Definitely not some big life-saving moment or anything, but it was a relief. Lol. Story 28. Locking your car doors as soon as you get into the car. Story 29. $5 breakage insurance on a rental surfboard. Broke that fucker clean in half in my first 10 minutes. Story 30. First aid kit in my backpack, a better one in my dorm, and one in my car. I try to always have a first aid kit within approximately 100 feet of me that I'm familiar with. That's helped a few times. Also becoming CPR first aid certified.